You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona Lewis, and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Biz-Souls. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler, and we get to the heart and soul of business and the people that make it happen.
Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day. It is Memorial Day, and we thank everybody that has served.
Thank you for your service.
And everybody who has sacrificed so that we can have this wonderful country of freedom. And
wacky as it is.
And we can argue about things, and we can disagree on things, and it's a wonderful experiment that I'm trying to get my phone
out of his pants. This is very professional.
I know.
So anyway.
I was trying to get a timer going.
All right. We can just say 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. All right. We digress. Today we're talking about generations in the workplace, because now there's like 5 in the workplace all at once, right? 4 or 5.
Yeah, I guess. We've got
baby boomers. Gen X. Millennials. Gen Z.
And Gen Y.
Yeah.
Or Gen Y and Gen Z.
Yeah. So that's, because the greatest generation, our parents' age, whatever.
Most of them are out of the workforce.
If they're still alive, yes.
There are actually some that aren't. I mean, and some of the big swinging guys that you're reading about.
Well, hey, look at Dr. Stuart Brown is 91, and he's still alive and kicking, and like somebody who's...
Ken Blanchard. Ken Blanchard's
really?
still kicking. Yeah, I just met with him. He wants me to come down and talk to him. I haven't arranged that yet.
Nice.
So
very good. So so it's not completely out of the ordinary, and for the most part, baby boomers, though, I think, are the oldest in the workforce overall.
For a majority, I would say so. Yeah.
And I've been talking to a lot of people. I was just at the California HR conference giving a workshop, and we just aside, from what I was talking about, just talked about how different generations view the workplace, and I think it's better now than it was, just being able to be open to work with other generations and appreciate their talents, as opposed to, they're too old, or, these young kids know nothing.
Right. I just read in an article, I don't know, put it out, that was millennials now have the majority of the leadership roles.
Which
and
makes
that
sense,
the boomers, which had the leadership roles, have fallen off.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why that is. It could be because some are retiring, or they don't want that much responsibility as they wind down.
I don't know if it's a want. I think it's just a change in work. I mean, a lot of people work for companies that was still, our generation was still just the very, very tail end of, work for a company for a long time, work yourself up through the company. Mm-hmm. I never, worked for that. And I saw my dad do that, and I didn't like, he stayed with companies for years and years and years, would get raises. It was stable, and he enjoyed that.
Most people, boomers do that more often than anyone else now, stay for 20 years or 25 years or whatever.
Well, that would be past tense, stayed.
Stayed. Yes.
Staying. And we were just tail end, though. I didn't do that. I never did that. My dad always thought I was crazy because I wasn't interested in it. I also told him I wasn't interested in retiring. Mm. And he was huge on retirement, and retirement was big in his time.
Yeah, see, and my dad never retired. He was a dentist. He was an entrepreneur. And he had a 1-chair office. And, he worked until he was 90, and he had a stroke and then lived another 2 years. He didn't do what he did when he was younger, when he was 90, but he worked on dentures and things like that. Didn't do any heavy duty surgery. He knew what his hands were capable of. And I kind of agree with that, because he loved what he did.
Right. I think if you love what you do, whereas a lot of people work for somebody else and they had to deal with other people's opinions, they really didn't get to own as much, maybe. And we're talking in generalities. And obviously the first point you made was not everybody it was the same in any generation.
Correct. And it's the same.
My
in-
father looked forward to retirement because he was working for other people. And in his retirement, he didn't look not to work. He was always volunteering and doing different things and running around. He liked the hard work. He got to be the boss, I guess, the whole boss. I guess that was the difference.
Yeah.
I enjoy my work.
Oh, yeah.
I've never had to, I don't worry too much. I mean, clients are always the bosses.
Of course. And I think if you have the right attitude about work, you can be ageless. You know,
I think so.
If you
If you
keep
want
up.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did a little research, and
Okay.
just to get an idea of what priorities were prevalent for each
group.
generation.
Okay.
And, you know, so
Okay.
I got some info from Atlassian.
I got some
I got me some info.
Weren't you just talking about somebody was interview on a podcast and he said is instead of are?
Yeah, and I'm such a stickler for English, and
obviously.
yes, my coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Anyway, so I have some info from Atlassian and also from Raconteur. So they actually start out saying age is often overlooked as an element of diversity, but research suggests teams with generational differences in the workplace are more productive, and multi-generational colleagues work better together when they understand what each generation is like and why.
Okay, so can we take these one by one as you go through?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's talk about the boomers. They have a very strong work ethic. They're very...
No.
What?
Let's
What do
take
you
the
mean?
age thing. The age thing
Okay.
is for diversity.
Okay.
Say yes and then go on doing what you want.
Yeah. I'm sorry, did you say something? I'm old and I can't hear.
So first of all, put yourself back in. Like, first of all, I didn't like teams at all. I always thought, give me the one or two people that could do the job. So that was a big learning thing for me later
Yeah,
on
I like teams. Yeah.
in life.
Well, I'm also much more sociable than you are.
Yeah. So in the meantime, though, I distinctly remember vaguely, and I don't know how it came
Wait,
up.
I distinctly remember vaguely. That's talking about English. Maybe we should do a podcast on speaking English.
Well, I'm covering all my bases. I distinctly remember. See, that's an air of authority and good character. And then I come in vaguely because really, I could be making this up. This could have been a movie And so here's the thing, though. It rings true with where I was. Would I have wanted to be on a team when I was 22, 23, 24 with some old dude? You know, somebody like 45 or 50. And I'm thinking, man, they don't know what they're doing. They're just already caught in a rut.
Stereotype.
They're caught in a They're caught in a rut.
Like, once again, English. Okay.
They're caught in a rut, and I would have thought they had very little to bring to the table. So now you're saying, okay, diversity is good, and I'm the the more mature individual that would be on the group or the team.
Right.
Being in my youth, in my 60s, I mean, 60s is the new 20, isn't it?
I would say 30, but that's just me. Anyway, so go ahead.
So look. Whereas I would have probably rejected it from the younger. So and when you read that off, I say it's good because I feel I have a lot of value to add, which I'm sure is the mentality of every generation. They feel they have a lot of value to add.
Yes, and each value is different, which is why they have to open up and appreciate what each generation brings to the table.
Except that what I was saying, again, in other words, because I wasn't obviously clear, is that in my 20s, if somebody older was going to come on the team, I would have been biased against that before we even sat down and talked. And I don't know if you would. And so I'm thinking that
possibly,
even though you've said each of the generations has to learn from each other, I think some of the generations are going to come to the table. I think at any one time, any one generation is going to have an issue with whatever they say about working across the generations.
Remember when we first started doing the podcast, we actually did one on ageism.
Right, because people
Do you
think...
remember that far back?
Yes. Let me go through my pill chest here and see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Did
this
you take
is
your
the
medicine
memory
today?
period.
That's
Here's my
right.
no,
Your nurse is
yes, of
standing
course.
up.
Exactly. Hey, it works for Mick Jagger.
He's got Post-it notes all over.
We're from Mick Jagger and
Yeah. Okay. So
company.
So I think that's part of it, that we may come in with the bias and the stereotype about the other generations, and we have to learn that each one does have something to give, and that's where psychological safety and trust and that openness and playfulness, where the generations can play with each other and learn about each other in a safe space to appreciate.
All right. So bottom line, studies are saying should have diversity of age. It's good. It's healthy if everybody can come together. Okay.
Right.
What was the next one on your list?
Well, I wanted to kind of break out a little bit what each generation is known for, what their strengths, how they communicate differently.
Okay. Can we argue about them as we go along?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Except we got 5 generations, and we've got to get this done. Like we said, 20 minutes on this, so we have to. Go
I won't
fairly
take
quick.
long, as you don't argue that much.
Okay.
So the boomers, this is according to these studies,
Right.
have a very strong work ethic, responsibility to their elders. They tend to be forward thinking, and they are actually better at solving complex problems because of their life and work experience. Their number one way of communicating is the phone, because that's, or in person, because that's what they grew up with. They're not digital natives. They're also motivated by different things. Their first, baby boomers was overall health insurance, a boss worthy of respect, and salary.
Okay.
In that order.
So any comments from you on that?
No, I actually kind of agree with it.
I don't, because
Okay.
I think they're not digital natives right away is a bias, an internal bias that, we prefer talking as opposed to texting or emailing or something like that.
It's also more intimate, voice to voice.
Well, I think it's a practicality thing. Texting is great if it's short, sweet, and great, and it's texting is not good when it's like 15 texts back and forth and takes you,
Right,
know,
which
extra
is
time
why
to
after a
text.
while you pick up the phone. So sometimes a phone, you can text and say, I'm going to call you. I mean, there are different ways of doing this. This is overall. There are unicorns in each of these.
Right.
Remember,
Right. I understand that. And to me, though, I would say that maybe somebody that would be critical of somebody that wants to talk out of practicality, maybe they are limited in their ability to talk. Maybe they don't have
it could
enough.
go with personalities.
Yes, personalities, or maybe the ones that grew up in, a little isolated on the phone all the time. Maybe they need to work on
Your
voicing-
personal skills?
No, just being more comfortable with face-to-face communication.
Sure.
Maybe that's why they're sensitive, is because they can handle the noise.
Could be because Gen Z doesn't like face-to-face. They like texting and IMs and let's go. They're in speed. I haven't gotten up to them yet, and we'll backtrack. I want to go to Generation X.
All right.
So Generation X overall, they're a little more independent than the more traditional baby boomers. They're the ones who started to be more concerned with the work-life balance.
Okay.
They prefer email as their number one, and one of their superpowers is the leadership skills and driving the execution of business strategies to bring new ideas to reality.
So I wonder where that comes from.
I don't know.
Does it come from was that because that's the Elon, the Jobs, maybe?
Yeah.
There are a couple of years, well, Jobs wasn't, but Elon is younger than
Yeah,
me,
and then
quite a bit.
and that's when when the internet was just starting to come into fruition.
So these guys
and
came in
tech.
and they were able
Yeah.
to take advantage of the tech and get things done.
And
okay.
their motivation first is salary, job security, and then job challenges / excitement. They can't just stay on an assembly line sort of thing. It's like, what's going to make me grow?
Okay. So we have a neighbor here. He did very well for himself, worked for Nike for a long while and headed up on their division, then became president of another company, worked there, and then thought
Whoops.
he was going to...
Got so excited.
thought he was going to be with the company for a while, and they had so much success so quick. Another company bought out his contract, and he hit his target. And when he first, said, "Jim, I'm disappointed. I wanted to continue a few years." Now he's totally retired. And
This is
young.
one of the neighbors?
Yeah, Tim.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, then. I know his dog, Gus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then next we have millennials. And this is interesting because when they first started coming into the workforce were like, those freaking millennials. They just, they're, what's the word? They're,
They believe the world's owed to them on a
yes.
plate.
And so they're, yeah.
Entitled.
And that's the word thing, and I actually don't believe that. I never did, because all the millennials that I know, and I have some who are friends, all work hard. And according to this, they respect the older generation work ethic, but they want more personal life and they want to make the world a better place. And they are more global because they really were, digital natives in the internet, and speed and convenience in communication is key for them. So they like the texting,
Right.
and they want to be able to drive real change in organizations and on their teams. And they emphasize trust. They want a purpose in what they're doing, and a mission, and they're all about well-being.
And I those are all good things.
Yeah.
I did, from our consulting practice, we did hear a lot about mid-level to senior level management saying that a lot of them came into established businesses, bigger established business, and felt like they were, it should be a much faster track to
They wanted
executive.
to be, right. They wanted to be a VP within 2 years.
And
I have heard a lot of that.
Right. And I don't, when I started Apple, I thought I could run the company better than Marco. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's part of exuberance and youth, and what's going on.
Yeah, they're not jaded. That's why.
Right.
Do you remember 100 years ago there was like around the Woodstock time, before my time, the never trust anyone over 30 or something like that.
Right.
And it's because the younger generation, God bless them, they haven't seen all the things we have.
Right.
And, so they're not.
Right. Dunning-Kruger effect. The people who know the least about something.
Right. Think they know the most.
Think they know the most.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then the newest, I didn't really go over why, because they haven't, they're like just coming in like last week. So there's not a lot of research.
Why did we go from Z to Y? That's a little backwards.
I don't know. Anyway, so Generation Z, they are real global digital natives. So they look at things from a worldview, and they're much more apt to value instant gratification. They have no patience, because they, as digital natives, everything came at them so quickly. Speed is a requirement. They're more entrepreneurial. They're more, can I say that again? They're more focused on personal fulfillment, and they're much more comfortable with change than the older generations are.
Well, and that makes sense, because they grew up where things were changing rapidly. So they, you get a new phone every year or every 6 months. You get a new computer every 6 months. Something big is on the horizon that dramatically changes something. Some store becomes, TikTok, exploded.
Exactly. And they more than the other generations question they question a lot about how work has been done in the past.
And good for them.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of things that could be changed about work.
And they are very concerned about salary, and they want to do their passion. And yet, because things have been so wacky, they're very concerned about job security.
Well, and one of the things I've noticed, that you had mentioned a comment that they're the more entrepreneurial. And it's never been easier to start a business in terms of you've got voice, and secretarial support. So, basically, so you've got somebody that can handle your office. Your accounting can be as seamlessly tied into your banking in every transaction you do. And it's easy for all these things. So they gave it a whirl. And what a lot of them are trying to become influencers. And a lot of them are like, they're living in
their parents
living at home,
and
they're working on being an influencer. And it's just like Hollywood, or it's just like sports. They maybe 1% make it, maybe 5% at the most make it. The rest,
they're, especially the young ones. I think they need to think of another way to do it, simply because they're a little late to the game.
Yeah. Well, some people would say we were late to the game of the podcast. I mean, we came in, and I don't think you have to be the first in something or even the first wave.
You have to
I think
see
we're
what's different.
riding the beginning of the second major wave for it. People are beginning to understand not the hype of the podcaster. They expect to be a Joe Rogan and get 100 million for their podcast. I think the people have understand this is a medium. And it's a medium that's going to continue to grow, and it's a way for people to connect to people. And I think I see a lot of tribes building up.
Yes. And I think a lot more are going to try and give up. And you shouldn't. You should keep going. I think it's still an average
This
of
from
10.
this from the person says, "This is it. I'm done. This is the last podcast we're doing.
Because he's
I'm
annoying.
done.
He's so annoying. I can't tell.
Just hang in there, guys."
Just don't work with Jeffrey. And remember when we first got in, it's like the average was 10 or less episodes?
Yeah,
Because it's a lot of work. And it's a lot more work for you because you're the one who edits it.
it is.
I just
am.
come and look pretty and make people laugh. My job here is done.
Hey,
Here.
you did research on that. You
I did.
and you did a good job for that because we were looking. We've got to build up a couple. We've got some busy schedules coming up, so we've got to have a few in the can just in case for backup.
Because I just don't want to come down here anymore. That's it. We're done. You're leaving me.
I know she moves to the beach, and next thing you know,
I don't need you anymore.
why do I need? Exactly.
I have the
What
beach.
have you done for me lately?
And you got really mad because now I'm 1 block from the beach and you are 2.
2 blocks. Yes, you're much
got so
closer than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So here's the thing that I've started to see in my business
Right.
is that going in with an open mind, with that childlike
Right.
beginner's mindset, without preconceived notions, without judgment, without bias, without prejudice, you find out so much more. And, we got stories.
right.
Gen X and boomers, they have a lot of experience, and the younger generation should listen as well as, be open. The older generation should be open to, I don't know how to do this on the computer. I need help. And that's,
Right.
I have clients where the owners are much younger and they're like, yeah, we use this, we use that. All right, you're going to have to show me. I don't know.
Right.
And I'm, because I'm vulnerable, allows them to be vulnerable. And they
Right.
still ask me, what do we do? How do we work this?
Well, and one of the things, Rona, not to pat you on the back too much, because heaven forbid it goes straight
This is
to your
not my
head,
hair. This is my head. Yeah.
is that you bring a skill set that they didn't even know they needed.
Right.
So they had an idea, and their scope was limited, and then you bring some experience, and you've widened it out for them.
Well, and
So you've saved them a lot of false steps in
Yes.
what they're doing.
I think so. And in that same way, so do you, because you have a unique model of communicating. That
Yes, somebody just said that. You're a unique individual. I'd like to find out more about you. It's kind of like, okay, should I check which side of the glove just slapped me in the face?
No, but and you teach people that for a myriad,
Yeah.
for sales, for all kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one of the things I have noticed, because you and I, with our different clients, do a fair amount of Zoom meetings as well,
Oh, yeah.
hybrid meetings, and I don't understand it. That a lot of the younger generation, they can really hang in there on the Zooms and be attentive the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's I've taken a few Zoom classes. It's tough for me to settle down and relax. It's just not enough. Whereas although it's still better than I'm a terrible student. That's all I can say, which is one of the things that helps me in dealing with programs. Anyway, the whole point was, I think the younger,
Where is this going?
I think a lot of them are good with the tools, and they understand the tools, and they can keep themselves engaged working with a medium that's only 2-dimensional.
Right.
Really.
Right. Yeah, and it is tough, especially when you are virtual, and when people turn off their video, drives me nuts. Drives me nuts.
Well,
Because,
and it's a way of connecting, and it's interesting.
Sometimes it's the only thing that you have if
Right.
you're working with somebody in another country or across the country. And if, when I'm teaching, I don't always push it because people are paying for it.
Right.
They can or they can't. And when I'm working with clients, I usually am like, turn your thing on.
Right.
Turn it on.
Well, let me see. I just did a program, and one of them just would not turn on her video. And
Maybe she didn't have makeup on.
well, I understand that, except the class didn't quite gel with her. So, if you listen to how they were joking with each other and everything, she just was kind of a little left out on that. And in the discussions, she got left out in the breakout rooms. I noticed she got left out a little. And it was interesting.
Yeah.
So it was a choice on her part. And I think, too, that is an expectation that you'll show as much as yourself as you can.
Yeah. When I just did a large class, it was over 100, and I had a producer on it, and she was very smart, and she's like, and we so appreciate you having your video on. Thank you very much for doing that. And all of a sudden you see click, 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 and everybody started turning them on. So sometimes you just got to say that. Yeah. Anyway, and there are, but bottom line for all of this is that we have to be open enough to appreciate the skill set of each generation. You and I have a lot of experience working with different kinds of clients, working in corporate, being an entrepreneur, what works, what doesn't. And at the same time, the younger generation knows how to get things done faster. They know tech a lot more than we do. So it's a win-win if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable.
Yeah. And I'm not going to, every time somebody says that, I tweak a little bit, that they know more tech than our generation.
You try hard to stay relevant. A lot of people don't.
Well, no, there's a lot of tech. Now it's not just being tech, it's which tech. So somebody might be really good in one form of tech, not, they can out-type me with their thumbs all day long, except, I can work software packages they have no idea from, and then I'm trying to upgrade my skill a little and learn
I can turn stuff on.
Anyway, so that's enough. And I think it's good. And I think it's good to keep checking in. And what's interesting is, what was it, 10 years ago, you were hearing about the generations, the big change, and you don't hear that much. Right. The one thing, if I was going to give a tip, though, for those out there, and this is still true, it was announced 10 years ago, and very little has been done at it. The amount of knowledge walking out the door from individuals, young, old, older, all of them it's unfathomable. The amount of knowledge that's being lost in organizations. I mean, we're talking good knowledge, things to be effective and efficient. And we struggle with this when we see it with clients. They don't want to spend time thinking about that knowledge drain that's just walking out the door. So, and I think you should.
There you go. Words to live by. All right. I think that is it for
That's
us.
it. We're golden.
All right. Let us know what you think about generations, what you've seen, stories. We love stories. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. We could use the numbers. And that's it for today. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
And what? And this has been...
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.